Hey traders, welcome back to another video. We're going to be primarily looking at BTC and USD, mainly the DXY, which is the US dollar index, to have an understanding of what's currently happening within the markets here. We did see a little bit of a little move to the downside. I can't really say it was a huge dumpster fire, but definitely was a pretty aggressive sell-off by the bears on BTC. So then we are seeing the US dollar gain a little bit of strength at around the 90 zone right here. So we'll talk about those two different price action structures. First starting with the Bitcoin chart and then moving on to the US dollar. So hopefully everyone is having a good weekend. We're going to be looking at first the daily, understanding what's going on, and then we'll talk about that a little bit later. So first things first, this is an all-time high. We're just shy of $50,000 for one Bitcoin. We saw a nice contraction right here starting from early January, and then we started breaking out at the start of February, and we were basically holding this 30K zone. We were talking about it within our Discord and our TikTok, and hopefully everyone was able to capitalize on this nice push to the upside for the most of really February, not just for Bitcoin, but for alts as well. So hopefully everyone's doing well on that regard. As of right now, we are seeing the target hit, which was the geometry of this opening of this symmetrical triangle or descending triangle, whichever way you look at it. And then we are seeing a nice ascending wedge, which has broken to the downside. Although right now we are seeing some resurgence of the buy pressure. So there are buyers holding it at this current level of support at around $46,500. And then we'll be taking a picture and discussing this in a little bit more detail. So let's get our snipping tool. This is, in my opinion, probably one of the easiest ways to explain and draw on charts. Really easy tool to use. Every Windows platform has one. So we'll be going on. This is the ascending wedge that we were talking about. We see a series of marginally higher highs, and then we see on a smaller time frame, this was a zone of significance here, as well as a previous level of resistance, as we can see back in early February, which turns into a support, and then we're currently seeing this zone act as a level of resistance, although we did see buyers really try to bring it up above this level. But this zone at around $48,000-$49,000 is a major zone of resistance from this level right here. But if we are going to be seeing this break above into the ascending wedge, that could shift my overall outlook on the current price action, because as of right now we see a slight confluence where we see the ascending wedge break along with this being the left shoulder. We see the head right here, and then we're currently seeing a potential right shoulder coming in right here, which would then create your head and shoulders formation, which then would potentially put you down a little bit further around the $42,000 zone, where we're going to be looking to see that trend down. And that's what we talked about within our recent post in our Discord, is the US dollar looks like it could be forming like a little bit of a bottom, and then if we start to see a little slight move to the upside, we could see some bullish action for the US dollar to bring it up to some major levels of resistance, which then will inevitably hold, and the overall market, in my opinion, for the US dollar is going to continue to the downside, because they're going to keep interest rates low, and they are continuing with the overall stimulus and dovishness for the central bank Fed policymakers. So that's the overall fundamental reason why I think Bitcoin's doing well and the US dollar is failing, negatively correlated assets, and the US dollar looks like it's potentially going to hold, and that's why I talk about it later, a little bit later on. But right now, we're going to be seeing if this is the main high that we want to see hold. Ideally, we want to be seeing it at that candle closure. We've already seen a candle closure above this zone on the 6 hour, which is a pretty large time frame. So we're going to be seeing if we're able to get a hold here, and then that would be a completion of the head and shoulders, and then we might get a little bit of a pullback here, and then a slight move to the upside. And then we'll be talking about the next structure that could potentially play out. So let's just move this a little bit over, and then take a look at the two major levels that we're going to be looking at. The first one is, like we already said, 42K. major zone of significance. Second zone is just above this 38,000 level, so we'll talk about that on a larger time frame. We'll see initial candle closures perfectly right there, and then a nice wick here, and a slight wick, not too perfectly, but this is that previous major high that we saw a lot of hesitation on with sell pressure right here. So overall, if we are going to be seeing a slight move to the downside from this squeeze for this ascending wedge right here, which squeezes out, we might get a little bit sell off here, and then what we're ideally looking for is a series of lower highs and then a horizontal zone, maybe at 42K or 38K hold. If we get a descending triangle and then we spit out there, we could then be looking for a wedge formation where a descending support zone is going to be holding a series of lower lows, and then that descending trend line is going to continue. So this is basically the two options that we'll be looking for if something like this does happen. Is we'll be looking for a descending zone, and if this zone holds like that, then we're going to be looking for a breakout at, let's say, the 44K level, kind of down here, buying the dip before we get our rally. And then if we are going to be failing to actually break the market structure, so not just the descending zone, but a level of confluence, so if it sells off, we see lots of sell pressure at a certain level, we need to see the break in market structure break above this zone, trading in the new range and new market structure in order for us to actually look for potential opportunities in leveraged longs. Investments, we're definitely extremely bullish, but in leveraged longs, that's what we're going to be looking for. And then if we don't get our descending zone, we'll look for maybe a low right there, a low right there, and then a low that came in somewhere here, somewhere lower along, maybe with a wick, and then you're going to be looking for that descending zone, so that long contraction, and you're going to be looking for that push, that initial impulsive push, similar to what we got right here. This is that strong impulsive push, lots of buy volume coming in, high R vol for the bulls, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking for. Same as if you're looking for shorts to the downside, you want that initial strong impulsive sell-off. That is a shift in confidence from the bears to the bulls. In this case, it's from the bears to the bull, from the bulls to the bears in the short sell side, and then this is obviously a bullish side. So we're looking for these strong impulsive pushes where the buyers really take charge. You see a ton of buy pressure, and it's holding the higher low. So this is the low that was held around 30K, and then you see a strong impulsive push from the buyers, and then you see a higher low hold right here, and then you start that overall rally. So we saw push, impulsive push, hold the level of confluence right here, not ideally because this was that major level, and that's why having patience and having previous levels is very important. So this is that previous level that we ideally wanted to see hold with that level of confluence right here. So we do see some candle closures below this level, but we see the formation of an impulsive push, a contraction, and then the next impulsive push, contraction, next impulsive push. You get your consolidation, you get your contraction, and then you get your next smaller, in my opinion, contraction before your next impulsive push. So then this is your first major push out of this price action pattern, and then you're going to get your consolidation, in my opinion, and then you're going to get your next impulsive push. So that's currently, in my opinion, how the market structure is looking, and the US dollar is looking very similar. So let's now take a look at the US dollar. Something I'm a little bit worried about, if we are looking at this zone, is if we actually do break below 42K right here, we have a potential, if we are going to come all the way down to 30K, to have a huge head and shoulders. So we do have to keep that in mind. It could also be a head and shoulders like so, if we get like hesitation right here, and then we get a sell-off. So just something to keep in mind. We've seen a huge move to the upside, obviously, for Bitcoin, and I think on a long-term time frame it will continue. But I think there's going to be some volatility here before the US dollar actually cracks below 88. And with volatility in the US dollar, with thrashing around, we could see some hesitation for investors and traders to long BTC and buy Bitcoin. So I'm going to remain a little bit hesitant as of right now. We just had a really good run of the alts, did really well on that one. So I think as of right now, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a hesitation here. And if it doesn't come, that's great. We will take a look at some alts today, but that the current situation of the potential smaller head and shoulders bringing the price down to like 43s, maybe even like the 42K level, in my opinion, could definitely be something that could arise. So I want to be a little bit hesitant on any leveraged positions as of now, because having patience is something that is really a virtue in this overall market, and waiting for that really good opportunity here, like you're holding for a while, right? Like it's a span of, let's say, 2 weeks. It's not short day trades. So we're going to be looking for opportunities in the altcoin market, but for Bitcoin and larger market cap projects within the cryptocurrency space, unless we see something change, I think there's going to be a little bit of hesitation for us to really look at opportunities there as of right now. Later on, obviously, it will change. We'll look for that nice descending zone, that contraction, and then once we see that nice breakout opportunity like we saw right here, we'll obviously change our overall exposure to these assets, leveraged. But as of right now, I'm just holding my investments, and I'm not really looking to leverage BTC as of right now. So that's my view on Bitcoin, and we'll take a look at some other altcoins as well. We see things like Uni take a spill, unfortunately. We talked about that in a previous video here. Did not play out the way that we intended. Just came right back down, did not break this resistance level like BNB did. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Not in great detail, but next thing we want to be discussing is the US dollar. So we see this nice potential double bottom, which could throw a little bit of thrashing within the cryptocurrency market. On the 6-hour chart, we see overall we're looking for the same sort of structure where we see a nice ascending wedge, break the price down, and then we see some hesitation, some thrashing, and then we go for the double bottom. The double bottom does not hold, and then we see a sell-off when it breaks below that previous low. And this is where Bitcoin and other alts really started to push and do extremely well. So we're looking for that same sort of structure where this 88 level is a major level. Why is it a major level? Let's look at the weekly chart. Previous key zone of resistance, as well as support right here. Resistance in 2014, support in 2018, major level, and we're currently at that zone right here. So in my opinion, we are going to be breaking to the downside, just because unless something changes fundamentally, the weakness will continue for the US dollar. Like, they're printing an exorbitant amount of money and having extremely low interest rates and literally giving money to American citizens to help out with the COVID crisis. So there's no reason that the US dollar, in my opinion, from a fundamental standpoint, should see strengthening unless there's something that changes fundamentally with some sort of catalyst. So right now, not really seeing that. For example, like the stock market is absolutely booming. The S&P 500 is looking like it's on a rocket ship, and that's because there's a huge loss in faith in the US dollar, right? And where are you going to put your assets if you're not going to be able to hold it in something that's going to hold its value like the US dollar? You're going to be looking at safe haven assets like gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, or you're going to put it into assets that are going to appreciate in inflationary periods. Real estate as well as stocks definitely are some of them. You could even do things like art or like collectibles, like historic collectibles, which are pretty interesting markets to get into. But overall, we're going to be looking at the US dollar very, very regularly because it's such a major part of what we trade, really. We're looking to have the US dollar falter, move to the downside, and inevitably go to zero in our lifetime. And that creates a extremely lucrative opportunity for people who are aware and understand what could potentially suck up the capital that is going to get basically taken out of the US dollar. You know, people are going to be fearful, worried, they're going to transfer that capital into another asset, and we're looking to have gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies be those assets that people transfer their wealth into. So overall, that's why we think that the US dollar is going to be breaking 88 inevitably. Like I said, there's going to be some hesitation, a lot of, in my opinion, demand at this level before we crack it. But once we crack it, we, in my opinion, are going to be dropping pretty far a ways here. And we've seen in the past, looking at the weekly chart, trends for the US dollar can last years. So, we've seen huge bounce backs as well, but overall, we're looking for a trend of this magnitude where, unless the central banks in the United States start to raise interest rates because CPI numbers are going through the roof, which they're basically at zero right now. They're marginal. They're not really significant at all. So as of right now, there's no real need for people to worry about inflation for their everyday cost and goods. It's mostly getting affected with the assets that rich people own. So the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So overall, that's currently what is occurring. And I think over time, people will start to realize that the currency is getting devalued at quicker and quicker rates, and then they will transfer their wealth somewhere else. Like I said many times, safe haven assets, sound money assets. So looking at this from a smaller time frame, we see a potential bottom forming here on the move to the downside. And it's not that the bottom meaning like we're going to make a complete new shift to the upside, but in terms of impulsive and corrective moves, this was our ascending wedge that we broke out of right here, similar to last time. In my opinion, we're going to see some slight thrashing here before we inevitably break. And once we break below 88 and break below this level of support, we're going to be seeing a massive push to the upside for alts and BTC. So we're going to be prepared. But right now, we're seeing a slight hold of this level of support right here. And we see a nice kind of first impulsive push failure. And then we see a potential ramp up for the second impulsive push. So if we are going to be getting another move up from the bulls, making a higher high, we could, from this high right here, we could see this level right here at around 91 test as a level of confluence, because we see this ascending zone and this horizontal zone create a level of confluence for the sellers at that area. So that's currently going to be what we're going to be looking for. And if that isn't the case, if we fail right here, we could be consolidating. But as of right now, I think it's just going to be thrashing in this level right here. I don't really want to be looking at perfect opportunities to leverage more than 2x really, because you could have this pump like we saw last time. We had a lot of thrashing here, and then once we started to make this zone right here, this squeeze, and then this right here is the Goldilocks zone right here. Or like the perfect situation to leverage. When you see these nice impulsive pushes, small corrective pushes, impulsive, corrective, impulsive, these are the points where you can make lots of money in crypto and alts, because the US dollar is failing, it's steady, you're not going to have these massive pushes to the upside that gives you sell-off for Bitcoin and alts. These are the moments where you can make a lot of money, and I think we are not at that point right here yet. I think March will probably be that month, but I think we might get a little bit of thrashing. We might get a little descending zone. We don't exactly know, and then we might get a little sell-off, another recovery. We use that zone again, and then we get another sell-off. We don't exactly know, but overall, we're looking for a little bit of volatility, to be completely honest. So then we get a little bit more of a contraction and a great opportunity on Bitcoin, where you get a series of lower highs. Because right now on Bitcoin, we saw an ascending zone that failed, and then we're getting a recovery kind of like in confluence with this zone, so it probably wasn't the best right there. So we saw a move to the downside, and then we got a little bit of a recovery, and now we're kind of hovering right here. So we're like below this ascending support, and we could see a sell-off and then have a descending zone right here. From this ascending zone, which is a squeeze up and contraction, we're seeing a descending zone, which in my opinion is a little bit better structure, and then we could see a nice entry at like a lower point instead of trying to enter up here after the contraction. So you see an impulsive push, you see contraction, you see a consolidation, and then the bears are going to get defeated after the bulls hold a certain level of support and then break the level of confluence, and then the shift in trend occurs, and then we're looking for that nice impulsive push, similar to what we saw in the previous kind of bullish move that we had here. So that's going to be the overall structure that we're going to be looking for the US dollar and Bitcoin, kind of together correlated. Like I said, I think wouldn't be surprised if we did see something like a little bit of a move to the upside, potentially hitting the 91 zone, kind of making this nice double bottom formation. So then we would be seeing a little bit of a slip in Bitcoin's price, which wouldn't really be a bad thing in my opinion, because it's great to have contractions. It's great to have market breadth after impulsive pushes, because these impulsive pushes are where you can really make money, but understanding that impulsive pushes birth contractionary periods, give you opportunities to, if you have patience, make a significant amount of money by just being able to understand these impulsive and contractionary pushes. So hopefully we are able to definitely capitalize on the next one if it is going to be forming something like that. We'll obviously check it out. We're now going to be looking at some altcoins here. Let's see how BTC is doing on a smaller time frame. Yeah, so ideally we're looking to see this move to the downside a little bit, and then the US dollar hold this 90.27 level, and then potentially see a little bit of a sell-off here. And then this is the S&P. We discussed that a little bit. Look how bullish it is. It's been since July, just basically going straight. A little bit of hesitation in September, October, but since October, basically late October, early November, it's been very, very, very bullish. So we're now going to be looking at some alts. Let's take a look at Ethereum here. And then let's move on to a 12-hour chart. That $1,400 zone right around here was that previous all-time high, right around there. And then we see a nice bullish push to the upside here. And we see a nice ascending wedge that is slightly melting to the upside, but we are seeing some hesitation in the markets right now, where you see this ascending wedge right here, which is currently holding as our nice level of support. So we see lots of buy pressure at this level of confluence. We saw a squeeze that occurred right here, and then we were expecting a bullish push to continue, but we did not see that. We're seeing not a sell-off, but a very significant hesitation, where we're seeing a series of higher highs just kind of close off into a horizontal zone. Not very great to see for the overall buyers within the market for Ethereum, to be completely honest. But what we're seeing right now is a squeeze between the buyers, which are right here, this level just above the $1,500 zone, because of the level of confluence for the two ascending trend lines. And then we see some hesitation just underneath the $2,000 zone for the sellers. So let's zoom in on a smaller time frame. If we do see a sell-off, we do have to remember that this is a major level of support for the buyers right around there, like 1,600, 1,700, because of the ascending zones. And then the previous all-time high is 1,400. So if it does fail that previous resistance to a new level of support at the previous all-time high in 2017, would probably be not a bad place to look for opportunities for supports. But in terms of a smaller term price action standpoint, let's just look, and not really seeing much right now. I do see a slight ascending zone of a trend line right here. Like, that's not really going to be doing me a whole lot unless we're able to really go like this, expand this a little bit more, and then we see, if we go back here, we see another longer squeeze. But the fact that we didn't break out of this one is a little bit worrying for this current longer, skinnier squeeze, which is a lot less ideal. Because we had this one, we had this resistance right here, and this level of support, create our initial squeeze, did break out, did hold the previous resistance as a new level of support. This right here is where we should have been more bullish, in my opinion. But instead of being bullish, we just aren't seeing that much buy pressure. So we are holding this previous resistance as a new level of support and consolidating within this level right here, which is the breakout zone. But it's just taking so long, and we're seeing lots of buy pressure, and we're seeing lots of sell pressure, and buy pressure is dropping off, and not much buy pressure is coming in. Volume accumulation is not really present within this current market here. Looking at the Ethereum volume indicator of the averages of the largest exchanges that retail traders use. So not looking phenomenal for Ethereum. And then the next opportunity, if we were looking for longs, would be the continuation of this level of support right here. And then instead of using this resistance zone like so, we would use this higher one right here, connected 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So then we could be seeing a squeeze like that if we were looking for bullish opportunities, where once it breaks below this ascending level of resistance and retests it, you're looking for a level of confluence with a previous resistance new level of new level of support in confluence with this ascending zone. And then after that point, this is the breakout zone where you're looking for consolidation before the impulsive push starts. So that's going to be the option number 2 if we do see the US dollar, which is currently kind of going like this. If we do see it kind of fail and actually drop below the level of support, we could see a complete melt up from altcoins, theoretically, if it starts to really move to the downside here. So we do have to be aware and be ready for that case. But as of right now, I'm still currently looking at mainly this ascending zone, which is right here. Hold this zone right here and have lots of buy pressure. So we're going to be seeing if maybe there's going to be like an ascending zone right here fail, and then we're going to get a slight consolidation even further, and then we're going to get a series of lower highs, and then we're going to get an impulsive push. That would be a really ideal situation for us to be in. BTC did something similar, so we'll actually look at that next, where we saw an ascending wedge, and then we saw a consolidation, and then we saw our next impulsive push. We did talk about this in a previous video, but let's just go over it yet again. Oops, let's open this up. Let's open this up and then look at like April, I think, in 2020. 12-hour chart, log, and it was this zone right here. This was the ascending zone that broke. In my opinion, it looked pretty darn good for a potential opportunity, and it just fizzled and started a long, drawn-out consolidation, similar kind of to what we saw right here. So we saw a major impulsive push, and then kind of similar situation. We did not want to see it break below this level of confluence. We didn't, but we saw it fizzle. We broke below the ascending zones, but we just saw it hold above this major level of confluence horizontally and start to fizzle. And we saw a nice contraction at every point right here. And then that is where we initiated the start of, in my opinion, the bull run of what we're seeing right now. So that is currently what we're anticipating for Ethereum, is some consolidation, contraction within the price action after our ascending zone, which is already broken out. So we're going to be looking for, let's just go auto, like so, for BTC, which does not look like it's holding super well. Like, we can just move that a little bit. The ideal goal would be to see it hold and move to the downside here. So that would, for me, be the best situation as of right now, because then a lot of these alts might sell off a little bit. Would be, in my opinion, a good situation. But if it does start to move, we do have options on Ethereum like we talked about. Let's look at Uni for a little bit, because it was an opportunity that we were looking at, which unfortunately did not play out. So let's open this and open up Uni. It was this ascending zone, and we did have a fib extension play out as well. It was like here, this ascending zone. So you saw a slight squeeze, and it just did not play out. This was less relevant. We saw the squeeze appear right here. You saw the double top formation, and then you saw the break above the double top We already have a series of higher lows, so this is a brand new high. Not a ton of buy pressure came into the market, but you do see a ramp up where there's more buyers and coming in, more buyers coming in, which does look pretty positive, but inevitably failed and broke this ascending zone and then had a huge sell-off there. So hopefully everyone who did take an opportunity were able to get stop losses right when it broke below this zone, really minimizing losses, because that is definitely a major part of trading and investing, is being able to understand when to get out of a certain particular trade. So that's going to be something that we're just going to be waiting and patiently just waiting to see what else emerges. As of right now, we saw a massive move to the upside, barely higher high here, and then once it broke this squeeze right here, to me, it is just kind of at a similar point with BTC, except it could even drop further because we've already kind of tested this major level right here at 17. If it drops below 17, that would be, in my opinion, quite a major level, because this is the kind of first consolidation until we kind of get into this range right here, which would be quite the sell-off. But you never know. We do have a minor level of around $12 right here. So we were looking for Uni, but as of right now, we're going to be pretty patient for this particular one. And then Binance Coins, the other asset that we like to look at for the exchange tokens. This is centralized for Binance, and then obviously a DEX, which is decentralized for Uni. So we saw BNB have a monster move to the upside. We're seeing quite a consolidation right now, where we're seeing a very, very tight squeeze channel, not really a squeeze, around $140, and the support being $117. Not a lot more to talk about on Uni. Let's jump into the smaller term price action of BNB. Looking at the daily, after we broke above that all-time high right here, retested, and then just had a monster move to the upside as well. We did have a little bit of hesitation when we were breaking above this zone, and then we saw like that major wedge squeeze. Look, if we go to a smaller time frame, we'll be able to see that hesitation, and then this low, this low, this low. I think it was at a smaller time frame I was looking at here. Let's go to the 2-day. There we go. That's the zone I was looking at right there and there. And then we saw a lot of hesitation with candle closure, doji, and then you got your monster shoot up. So that was the last level of like real supply, and once that blew through, obviously the bulls just completely took over, and that would be the first level where if we are going to get a pullback within the overall market, we could see the buyers kind of step in at 68, which would be a huge move down, but that is a monster move. So having a little bit of volatility to kind of come back from this parabolic point would be something that wouldn't be too far off from what we would perceive as normal in the market, in my opinion. So looking at smaller time frames here, we did see a failure sell-off of this ascending zone, so not an ideal situation. We were not able to break above this previous high at 148. So a little bit of a shift in confidence from the buyers right here into the sellers when it broke below this ascending zone, and now we're in a territory where we could start smacking down to the downside. And once we see the price leave this zone right here, we could be in a little bit of a free fall mode, because we didn't really see much hesitation on the way up, so we don't have to see a whole lot of hesitation on the way down there. So definitely something to keep in mind. Be a little bit careful out there because of the overall market conditions of where BTC is. But this is speculation. We could just see it continue. But in my opinion, with the US dollar where it currently is, I wouldn't be too surprised if we did see a slight sell-off within BTC where alts could follow. Let's just take a look at DOT. And then Cardano is actually looking pretty decent. It did have a little bit of a nasty sell-off here, with the wick moving like 10%, 13% plus, from the 80-cent support all the way down to the 68, 70-cent support. Came right back up. So we know there are a ton of buyers for Cardano here. On the 2-hour chart, we see a nice descending zone. We do see a very strong break. So if any alt is looking a little bit more bullish, I would say it would probably be Cardano. just because of the contraction we're seeing. We see lots of wicks to the downside, meaning buy pressure is coming in. We don't see that high R vol for the buyers just yet, so I'd be hesitant right now, but then let's just go to a different time frame to see where that horizontal zone should be. Right around there. Previous support, new level of resistance on the 12-hour. Let's look at the daily. Yep. Candle closures right there, and let's see if this zone lines up with a little bit higher. There we go. So we got our two levels, 0.9, 90 cent, which is the current level of resistance right here. It would be great to see a slight consolidation within this zone, holding the 90 cent resistance right now into a new level of support. And once we see that consolidation around right there, we could see that next move to the upside. Although right now we're seeing diminishing buy pressure, which is not what we're looking for. We want to see increasing buy pressure, similar to what we saw right here. Buy pressure, increasing buy pressure, increasing buy pressure, increasing buy pressure. Right now we're seeing decreasing buy pressure, as we can see from a larger standpoint and a smaller standpoint. So not phenomenal in terms of VSA. Technicals definitely do not support it breaking just yet, because we just had a small little move to the upside here. We're not really seeing a whole lot of, we don't see a confirmation of it hold. We don't see it breaking a major level of significance, which is currently around that 90 cent zone. So overall, we do want to be a little bit more patient because of the potential sell-off that we could be seeing here, looking at the US dollar and Bitcoin. So that's going to be the overall video for today. Major look at the DXY. Hopefully everyone is keeping track of this particular chart, because it is definitely something to have an eye on, because at the end of the day, it's very negatively correlated with the assets that a lot of you are probably making money on, mainly altcoins, BTC, maybe some stocks, which are negatively correlated with the US dollar. So hopefully everyone is having a good weekend. Thank you very much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you found this to be useful, educational, informative, definitely give it a thumbs up. We really appreciate that. And if you think that we should continue making more videos like this, please subscribe, so we definitely understand that they are helping and they are able to actually provide some level of value. So hopefully you guys are profiting. It's a pretty unbelievable time in the market. Altcoins are absolutely booming. I just basically took off all my leverage before the drop. Kind of sounds corny, but legit, like right here, definitely a good spot, to be completely honest. So I'm just chilling, waiting. I have my investments, but obviously in terms of leveraged positions, I don't want to be having a leveraged position when it's dropping 10, 20, 30% for an alt. So I'm staying patient. I'm looking for that nice contractionary period that could take weeks or even a month before we get our next impulsive push. We're going to really capitalize. Being able to use leverage is phenomenal, but you have to use it wisely. So hopefully everyone is staying safe, but definitely taking a little bit of risk, because it's, in my opinion, the time to take a little bit of risk, and smart risk, calculated risk. So hopefully everyone's having a good time out there, and until next time, have a good one.